Hey y'all, my name is Tamra Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host. I'm pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability. And I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to comeback, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. Welcome, welcome. We are live for another recording of the Fit and Faith podcast, and I am so pumped to be joining you with two other guests versus just one, which is a special treat for me, and I believe a special treat for you. They're used to being together, and they'll explain why that is here shortly, but I hope I'm finding everyone well and at home and not going out of their bananas mind with everything that's going on with this quarantine, but I really hope that you have an opportunity to just tune in, relax a bit, maybe grab some lunch and enjoy this conversation. I am really pumped to give you an opportunity to get to know these gals and how we randomly virtually connected, and in this virtual world that we're living in now, what better way to kind of connect with other people. We've got some girls already on watching, so you guys take the floor, kind of introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about you individually, and then how collectively you guys are in relationship, partnership. Yes. I love all of it. That's amazing. So good. We have so much connectivity in your storyline, so we'll have to dive into that in a little bit once Chelsea introduces herself.
I fell in love with the area, moved away for a little while to start our careers, and then ended up coming back, which is when Kathryn and I connected. I actually went to school for exercise science and worked full-time in the fitness industry for several years. I loved it. I kind of found my own health and wellness journey through the educational part of it. And that was really the first thing that tied Kathryn and I together. Do we need a second?
Hold on, ladies. It sounds, I'm getting feedback from the people on the other end saying that they cannot hear you. So I'm trying to figure out why that would be. Stand by.
I can try taking my headphones out.
Thank you, Brittany, for... Oh, wait. She said she can hear now. Okay. So let me change something really quick. I took off my sound. Brittany, can you hear all of us if we're all talking? Chelsea, can you hear Chelsea?
Hello, hello. I can try to take my mic out.
Let's see. I'm going to do one more thing. It was the second person. I can't hear you guys now. Can I hear Chelsea? Can you say something?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you are. Okay. Hopefully they can hear. She's giving us feedback, which is amazing. All right. Awesome. Yes. Okay. She's good to go. Okay. So we didn't get to hear any of your introduction, Kathryn. So we're going to resort back once Chelsea shares. Okay. Awesome.
Oh, no.
No worries.
Okay. So trying to pick up where I left off.
Yeah. No, just go from the get-go.
So wait, it's like start over?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Chelsea Hollis. I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina a little under 2 years ago when Kathryn and I met. I went to school here, and so did my husband, and we just loved being by the ocean and this area. It's such a neat community here, but ultimately there wasn't really any opportunity post-college when we were here, so we moved away and ended up coming back. I went to school for exercise science originally, so I spent a lot of time in the industry, working full-time at a corporation for several years, and ultimately ended up deciding that that wasn't really the path that I wanted to be on anymore. Even though I still loved fitness, I really found my creative outlet through photography and ended up pursuing that. Just one day, it was my goal to have flexibility to work from home when I became a mom one day. And so I kind of was still juggling both of those career paths when we got here. And we can kind of get into how those things cross paths.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's a whole nother story. But now I own a full-time wedding and portrait photography business called Chelsea Allegra Photography. So I specialize in weddings, which, right now is not the best thing in the world. It's been a little stressful.
Yeah.
I still teach some yoga classes on the side here and there. And Kathryn and I started the Heart and Soul podcast together. I'm also a wife, and I'm currently 22 weeks pregnant with our first baby boy.
That's exciting. So, congratulations. That's
you.
So fun. Oh yeah, that's going to add a whole nother element to your all's everything.
Oh yeah.
That baby boy's going to be spoiled. He's going to be like he has two mamas with you and Kathryn.
I know. It's going to be
so
really
cool.
Fun.
That's exciting. That's a whole life transition. All right, so Kathryn, I want you to kind of reshare a little bit because people didn't get to hear, and I want to make sure that they're all on the same page.
Yeah, no problem. I'm Kathryn Benko. I own a business called Soul Fitness. It is a health and fitness women's group only. So I have a past with eating disorders and a lot of body image issues, a lot of disordered eating, abusing exercise, and really having a poor relationship with food in general. So once I began the journey of healing from that, I found that community was key for healing, and also not giving up things that we love. And I loved fitness, and I didn't want to have to give that up. So I knew I needed to mold it into a more healthy routine for my own mindset. So I came and moved to Wilmington from Texas 6 years ago, and when I moved here, I kind of considered it my fresh start to start that healing process. And I started just a free group for women to work out together, where we both moved our bodies in challenging ways, but also practiced this idea of shameless living, which is basically the point of shameless living is when you share your story, then darkness really can't live there, and it kind of connects people, and it brings vulnerability. It makes vulnerability more present in just everyday conversation. So started that, and really trying to just exercise from a place of loving the skin that you're already in, instead of trying to mold it into something that society tells you should look like. So yeah, it's now turned into a full-time business. We do group workouts, online exercises through an app, and we also do personal training. And yes, that's kind of what I do, who I am. I'm a wife, and I have a golden doodle named Bear, who I love. I really love Taylor Swift more than most people, and I love red wine and living by the beach. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. So it's so random that I feel like God aligns situations and conversations and kind of packs things on without you understanding what it could possibly be. And yesterday I had a live monthly sister show that I do with one of my girlfriends of faith as well. And the whole conversation was around confidence. And so we did a lot of conversation around my individual story with body image issues and lack of confidence, and how I masked it for many years with many different issues, fitness being one of them. And so it's really cool that your story and my story has a lot of alignment. And one of the gals who's listening now says that it really resonates with her on a deep level, your story. So I think that vulnerability piece is such an integral part of who God intended for us to be. And yet we're so often used to holding mask or carrying mask or wearing mask that we don't even sometimes realize that we are. And as a business coach, I've really had that at play when coaching women, which is really out of the norm for entrepreneurs, because they're usually coming to the table just in that specific mindset and not wearing all of the other hats that they are, just like you guys said, like, this is what I do, but I'm also a wife, a soon-to-be mom, this is another passion that I have, this is another passion. So whenever I bring people to the table around coaching, whether virtually or in person, it's always like, hey, I want to know all parts of who you are, because I feel like that's how you're going to be most successful. So I love that both of you guys have really honed in on who that is for you, so that you can present that to the world. So I love, like, Chelsea, you combine these two things that are passion points for you, and now you can say, hey, here's me as a package, as well as with the podcast piece being integrated into that.
Yeah, that's a really
I think that my story of body image issues obviously connects all women. I think whether you've struggled with, and this is how Chelsea and I kind of connected to in the beginning through fitness, is I think whether you've struggled with an eating disorder or not, like, you're a woman, and so you are kind of more ingrained to pick apart your body, not because you want to, but because it's kind of being pushed down our throats every day with, like, what we should be looking like.
Right.
And I think that that is one way that Chelsea and I connected, is we were both like, one, I think that in order to make a friend, you need to just, like, let the awkward, like, it's going to be awkward, like, let it be awkward. So, like, we were able to just connect virtually online through Instagram and be like, hey, you like fitness too? So do I. Oh, I've struggled with body image too. Me too. Oh, I actually love Taylor Swift. I'm getting married. You just got married. So it's just like bringing people into your story. Any type of vulnerability is what's going to, like, develop relationship, whether it's we can all connect on something. And I think as women as a whole, we can obviously all connect on body image, but there's so much more to that.
I so agree. I use the word rooted a lot in my branding and the things that I develop, because I think if we have a foundational relationships with people that are rooted in truth, then it's such a solid foundation that, like, if there's something random that comes up in your relationship, whether it's intentional or unintentional, like, you can always go back to where it's rooted. And that truth is ultimately what's going to keep you guys friends, what's going to keep you all thriving and just being in support of one another. So I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us about your podcast. What's it about?
Well, both Chelsea and I had wanted to start a podcast separately, and I had kicked off Soul kind of part-time and wanted another outlet, kind of more like a long-form content way for women to share their stories, because I found that, like, while I was coaching these classes at Soul, I was able to kind of have the mic and, like, teach and share what I was going through, but I also, on the other end, I wasn't able to hear a lot of the women's stories. So I wanted to start a podcast where we could interview women and talk about health and wellness from, like, a wholeness aspect, and then also just talk about women's stories beyond that, beyond health and wellness. And so when I brought it up to Chelsea, she had been thinking of the same idea. And so we're like, well, we're both passionate about the same thing. We both have the same, we're both rooted in the same truth and in our faith and in how we view health and fitness. And we both are rooting for women. So we were like, let's do this together. So we started Heart and Soul to dig into wellness, but also dig into the heart of women as well. So
That's so good. That's so good. And it's such a beautiful expression of, like, community in that, because I know whenever I'm listening to podcasts of any sort, when there's, like, somebody's, like, truth on the line, you are invested in listening, but you're also invested in, like, their success story. It's almost like when you watch a movie or read a book and you're, like, rooting for the underdog, right? And it's like, we want you to succeed. So, like, to know that, like, you have this experience with people and giving them an opportunity as an outlet to provide hope as a resource, it's really, really cool.
The cool thing about it too was when we initially started, January 2019, right? Yeah. We were both kind of at this place of, we were still juggling, like, so many different things. Like, we were in the kind of, like, hustle phase, if you want to call it that, where Kathryn was still working multiple jobs. I was still growing my business and working in a corporate fitness thing here. And we were kind of collaborating on some things together. And I got to the point where people were, like, kind of confused as to what we did. And not that we really cared what people thought, but we were like, hey, what if we have this platform where we can kind of explain a little further, like, okay, this is what we believe in. This is what we're working towards. Here's how we can support each other through this. And the really cool thing that came out of it was obviously the community, but, like, now we can listen back to our story. And I went full-time with my business. Kathryn went full-time with her business. Like, so many different
You got
things.
married.
I got married. I got pregnant. Like,
That's so
yeah,
cool.
all these
Milestones.
things came out of it from this struggle point. And like Kathryn said, like, the biggest thing we want to share is stories of breakthrough and this idea of shameless living. So whether we have women come on and talk about their entrepreneurial journey or struggles with fitness and body image, like, that is the route that we continue coming back to no matter what. And part of my frustration with working in that industry, the fitness industry, for so long, was this idea of it being about an aesthetic, and it would just irk me so badly. And we've had some really heated conversations on the podcast about it. And Kathryn was meant for being in this industry and breaking that stigma. And I'm kind of like, I wanted to get out of it, but still have a place where I can voice that based on where I've been. And so it's been really cool to see that no matter what the topic is, everyone has that in common at some point. And we've really heard from so many women through reviews and emails and messages on Instagram that, hey, you've actually like really changed my mind around the way that I view myself and my worth and fitness in general. So I think that's the biggest, coolest thing that's come out of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think like something that's not going to go away just because of the way that the secular world has presented it, and health and wellness, I was just saying this is also on the rise. It's going to continue to rise because it's such a part of the need, like environmentally, obviously, but also from the fundamental space of our well-being and the longevity of our life, really. And so knowing that it's on the rise, knowing that we don't really have control on how the secular world's going to share the need for that and monetize it. And so being really conscious of that from a heart space of how can we serve people best and well, and remind them on a consistent basis that how the world presents your beauty or your need to exercise or your need to eat right is very different than how God would have it and how God would have you steward your vessel, if you will, from biblical scripture. So I love that you guys are doing that.
I also think like the enemy wants to attack something that we think that is good, like something that we think is good. So like taking care of your body is a good innately, it's a good thing. Yeah. And I think that the enemy wants to like get into that and just take it one step further of like, oh, well, if you're going to take care of your body, let me push it to this extreme, or let me add this restriction in. And it becomes skewed of like, wait, what is healthy and what isn't? Because you've been attacked on both fronts. So
100%.
Yeah, I think it can mentally just mess with you.
And I think that goes to like what Chelsea was saying from like a vanity metric of like it being an additional thing that people are doing from that space, but then also the fear and the confidence component where it's being done and masked, whether it's in anorexia or bulimia or any of those different forms. And they're presenting it on like here's a new fad diet, right? And you're like, wait, no, like that's not it. And so knowing that holistic approach, and when I say holistic, it means, I think the same thing that it means to you, where it's not just holistic in the kitchen or holistic in the exercise, but whole, meaning WHOLE or HOLY, holy, in the sense that there's the mind, body, and soul connection that really comes into play. And I remember having that switch for myself go off when I realized that my fitness journey was more a spiritual fitness than it was a physical fitness. And I think that that's so, as you're saying, like innately how a woman is designed, innately how we desire, but it's just been discombobulated, stripped down.
Yeah, when the mainstream is telling you, or your whole life, you're being told that fitness is about physical appearance and like achievement and what you look like and what, you know, how much you can lift and whatever. And yes, while the technical term of physical fitness is your endurance and your strength and your body composition and all that, it's really sad to think that our whole lives we've been told this one narrative. Like, for example, there's this ad that keeps popping up on my Instagram stories that it makes my blood boil every single time I see it. Kathryn, I think you know what I'm talking about, the running one.
Ever since you posted about that, I have seen it like 4 times.
So retargeting.
It's like this animated chick and she's running and it's these like big pink letters. It's all like for women, of course.
Yeah.
And it says, how much do you need to run every day to lose weight fast? And then it's got her metrics on the side of her height and her weight, which are completely normal within like very healthy BMI range, even though we know that's not necessarily a good measure anyway.
Right.
And it has her like, oh, she needs to run three miles a day, and it shows her body shrinking as she's running.
Gosh.
And I report it every time I see it because I'm like, this right here is what's wrong with the world. That's why it's so hard for us to break down those walls in our head of what this is truly about. And that is just what we ride home every single time we bring this up on the podcast, because it is so frustrating. But it's there, and we want to be the ones to tell you that that's completely bogus.
So explain to me, because you guys are both fairly newly married within the last year or two, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're coming up on 2 years in a couple
Yay,
weeks.
congrats. So tell me about being in that phase of marriage, being in the courting phase even before that. How did this mindset like play into your relationship with your now spouse? And did he have like similar perspectives or similar experiences? That's to both of you guys.
That's a really good question. I'll preface with, I think that a lot of women actually want to change the way that their body looks, not necessarily to impress men, but to impress other women.
Interesting.
More of like a comparison thing of like, I want to look like this girl, or I want to weigh less than this girl, or whatever. So I think that God really, timing wise, knew what I needed in that, like, for the first part of my healing journey. Like I was single, and I was really trying to work on my, I was really trying to figure out like how God viewed me, and from there love myself a little bit more. So by the time I met my husband, he's like the biggest supporter of my mission, in the sense that like he actually like started flirting with me because my friend showed him the Soul Instagram, and he was like, oh, I love this, because he loves health and fitness, and he also loves Jesus, and so he liked the idea of like that coming together in like a really healthy way. So he actually has always been like my biggest fan, which I think, ladies, if you're listening and you're single, that's what you want to look for in a husband. But he really actually encouraged me to go into the fitness industry, as it was something that was stirring in my heart, of like something that I really wanted to try, but was a little nervous. I worked in the corporate world in marketing, and when we started dating, like 3 months into dating, he talked to the gym that I worked out at without me knowing, and asked like, would you hire Kathryn if she like wanted to work here? And they're like, yeah. And so he like got me a job in the fitness industry, and like just kind of like in a very kind way, like meddled his way into like my dreams.
That's awesome.
So I think that the way that he's loved me through my body image issues is, one, reminding me of my worth in Christ, and that the number on the scale doesn't matter to him.
That's good.
And it shouldn't matter to anyone else. And also championing like my dreams. So like really coming alongside me and like being like my business coach, like you're a coach, like he's like coaching me to like take those next faith steps in creating Soul Fitness, which I would not have gone full time without him or Chelsea, probably. Like
that's
those
awesome.
are the two people who kind of pushed me into that. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. No, I think that's amazing. How about you, Chelsea? What amazing? How about you, Chelsea? What question is? No, I think it's good.
I love that. That's so awesome.
It is.
I have a little bit of a different story here. Jordan and I met when I was a little under a year out of college. So I was, at the time, like when we first started dating, I was working at the Duke Health and Fitness Center as a group instructor there. And I was also like all over the place doing personal training and just kind of like finding my way as a fitness professional. And eventually I landed a full-time job at a really big, like, dream job corporation in the area when we first started dating. And at that time, I was still under this notion that, especially if you're going to be a fitness instructor, like, you better walk the walk, you better talk the talk, you better look a certain way, you should probably have a six-pack. Like, I never was, like, physically speaking that into myself, but it was like a mindset that I kind of had, because when you study and you're studying exercise science, or you're trying to become an instructor, no one really tells you how to view that. It's like, here's the science behind it, here's how you do it, but no one tells you how to view yourself, or how to tell your clients to move, or any of that.
That's
so
true. It
was really just like a transformative journey along the way of, like, the longer I was in the field and working in it, the longer, like, the more I realized what it was actually about and what it was definitely not about. And so he basically just supported me in every single step of that, from like coming and taking my classes to just kind of sharing the same viewpoints of me when we'd have conversations about it. Like, even him as a male, he has some friends who kind of fell into that path of like, you know, doing fitness competitions and kind of like starving themselves to look a certain way. And we both always just felt like this deep tug on our hearts that is just not what this is for. That's not what we're meant for on this earth. And so I really think like within the last couple of years is when really things started to shift for me, and meeting Kathryn and kind of coming out of the industry and realizing like what it actually means to be fit. And I think, yes, a lot of my confidence comes from the fact that I'm in a like very loving relationship who has never made me feel less than for the way that I look ever. Like, that's never even been like remotely a problem for us. So I do have him to thank for that, but I think it's been a continuous journey the whole time.
It's beautiful. I think it's necessary for people to know that there is a possibility of evolution in that. And I think to speak to the woman who is either single or the woman who is in a relationship or married to somebody who has that unhealthy mindset towards who or how they should look in the mirror, and they struggle with that. And I think I'd love to like unpack that a bit from like your coaching, you know, mechanisms on what are the things that women could do to better themselves, better their mindsets, better their heart sets, so that they can have an internal change, even beyond a measurement change, right? And that they can be empowered by the fact that they're, you know, beautifully and wonderfully made. And I'd love to just hear like kind of how you coach people through the mindset piece, the heart set piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, going back to the husband thing, like one last thing is as husbands in scripture, they're called to love their bride as Christ loves the church. And so Christ loves the church without shame, without condemnation, with freedom, with unconditional love. And so when you're with grace, so much grace. And so when you're comparing that to who you're picking as a partner for life, like you want to be treated the same with those characteristics in mind. So that's one thing that I just wanted to like hone in on too. And two, that directly correlates to how you look at yourself too. So rooting yourself, like you said, you're rooted is one of your words. Rooting yourself in truth is something that seems really like simple. Like, oh, I just read this piece of scripture and it's supposed to like change me from the inside out. And yes, scripture has the ability to do that. But what I think really roots it inside of your mindset and inside of your foundation is repetition. That's and so like taking thoughts captive every single day, reading truth every single day, having accountability around you every single day, or else it's going to be really easy to slip back into those negative mindsets. Like for me, it's super easy. I mean, I'll use the quarantine as an example. Like it's super easy when I'm isolated for me to go back into disordered thinking about food and about exercise, especially because those are my issues, and about my body image. But when I'm surrounded by community, like, and my story is brought into the light, like I am not able to fall back into it now because so many people know. So rooting yourself in truth looks like speaking over your identity about what God says about you. So he says, like you said, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're a child of God. You're adored. He knows every hair on your head. He loves you more than the birds in the sky. Like he listens, he hears you, he chose you. Like there's so many parts in scripture where like you are presented as this treasure to God. And so if you start looking at yourself like, oh, I am a treasure just the way that I am, and you start to let that truth sink in daily, then it eventually becomes the way that you think about your body. Like and it's not an overnight thing. And I think a lot of people think when I share my story about healing from an eating disorder that I just like woke up one day and decided like I'm not going to have an eating disorder. But every day I'm healing still. And the reason I created Soul is for an extra piece of accountability, because it's so easy for me to slip back into it. So like as far as tangibly goes, prayer, accountability, truth, rooting yourself in actual truth. So like reading scripture, whatever you choose to believe in, whatever you believe that is true. And then also seeing yourself through the Creator's eyes.
Yeah, kind of tacking onto that. We've had this conversation a couple times too on the podcast of like, you know, like Kathryn said, it's a journey. We wish we had like a step one, do this, like a tangible, hard set of ideas. We don't. We continuously hone in on the fact that, yeah, this is going to take some time. If you've felt this way for 20 plus years of your life, chances are it's not going to just happen overnight. So, that's one thing, but then, and just kind of accepting that and knowing that it's going to take some time. From a tangible standpoint, some other things that we've recommended and talked about is finding accountability, like Kathryn said, but also if you're going to be going to a studio or working with a coach, looking out for things that are kind of red flags when it comes to diet culture, right? So like when we're coaching, for example, we're never going to be like, oh, like, let's get ready for bikini season, ladies, like time to work on those abs. Like that is not the verbiage that we're using when we're coaching our students. It's about how they're feeling, empowering them to be strong and giving them permission to back off when they need to, and permission to push a little harder when they need to. And so looking out for those red flags, I think, are super important if you're going to a studio or a gym or working with a trainer that is measuring you all the time or trying to get you to become a part of a challenge of some sort that's based on an aesthetic rather than something more feasible and attainable. And anything down to like, it sounds kind of silly, but like if there's people on social media or Instagram that make you feel less than, or like you're not measuring up, unfollow. Follow the people that are going to lift you up every day and put you in that right state of mind, because it's easy for so many of us, especially scrolling these days, because man, the screen time has gone up embarrassingly.
True, very true.
Time. But I think those little steps ultimately end up helping that mindset shift in the long run.
Yeah, that's huge. Like you have to choose a lot of like seemingly hard things in an instant, but it just like has such a much more positive effect. Like even just throwing away a scale, like stop weighing yourself, actually throw your scale away, break it in half, you know, like that'll just take away the temptation of stepping on it every single day. You know, like little things like that, where you're like, in this instance, it's really hard for me to unfollow this person, or it's really hard for me to throw this thing in the trash, but the positive effects it's going to have on your mental wellness is like beyond worth it.
So I call what you guys are talking about, because I'm writing a book called Fit in Faith. And that was really where my Fit in Faith podcast came from, out of writing this book and knowing that the story needed to be out sooner than the publishing world would allow it. And also that other women, again, have these storylines, and it's so necessary for us to be able to share them. But I call it landscape design. And so it's like taking inventory of your landscape, being whatever it is on your phone, or being what's in your refrigerator or your pantry, or being what's in your bathroom, or the words that are coming at you, or the music that you're listening to, or the videos that you're watching. For me, a huge struggle back in the day was like MTV music videos, and now it's way worse because it's in everything. But just like even hearing the way songs are written and the way that they talk about the female body, and then again designing it so that your inputs are positive and wholesome and right and true. And so I really love like all the things that you're saying. I think it's so imperative for people to realize that it's an action. Like you actually have to take action. It's not something that's just going to naturally shift as your mind becomes well, because it doesn't work like that. As my mind was healing, the reason my mind was healing was because I was taking out the things that were affecting my mind. And it was just exactly as you're saying, take out the comparison. Obviously, from a business perspective, my wheels were spinning, Chelsea, when you were talking about the red flags, because I feel like that would be an incredible resource to your community. Even people who are outside of your community, listeners who are like, what does she mean by red flags? Maybe it's words that specific trainers say, or red flags in their, even in their gyms that they're signing up for. Like, what is the mission behind that gym for people to understand? I mean, half the time you walk into a gym and sign up, you don't even think about that stuff. But for instance, I'm a part of Burn Boot Camp. I think you guys have one local to you. Mm-hmm. And it's all about women empowerment and community, and like empowering us as women to be the best version of ourselves, to be strong. And the owner is in his faith. And so a lot of people are infused with like that faith mindset when they're in the gym. And though from a music standpoint, they don't choose like what I would choose when I work out or go on a run, but I am strong enough now that I can stand in those spaces and work out and not let those words affect me the way that they used to so strongly. So I love that you guys are doing that for your community, because it's invaluable, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Totally. What else? Tell me more. What else? Where can we go with this? I feel like I have a bunch of questions, but I want to give you guys the floor if you guys have any other thought patterns.
I have a little side note.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We're both like super Taylor Swift fans.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but if you haven't watched her documentary,
I haven't,
on Netflix, you should. She actually brings up at one point, she gets really vulnerable about her body image journey, and some of the advice and the things that she talks about on there is like, even as the world's biggest pop star struggling with this, makes so much sense. You know, she talks about the ways that she would kind of, what's the word, like untrain those thoughts to come into her head when she would look at a picture of her in the press and be like, oh wow, I look so huge here. And then she talks about how she would backtrack and say, whoa, no, we're not going down that road again. So that's just a little side note.
That's awesome. I haven't seen it, and I love a good documentary. That's awesome.
Yeah. I have a little quote from it because that's how obsessed I am. It's on my Instagram, but so I can pull it up real quick. But it says, I'm a lot happier with who I am, and I don't care as much if somebody points out that I've gained weight. It's just something that makes my life better. The fact that I'm a size 6 instead of a size 00, I mean, that wasn't how my body was supposed to be. I just didn't really understand that at the time. And she goes into like how you do get kind of like trained growing up that like you need to be on this fad diet, or you need to look this way in the press, or it's just so detailed. And hers is on like an even more heightened level because she's Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So like, everyone's looking at her. Yeah. But I think it's something that everyone can relate to, where she says like, it's something that happens very slowly over time, and it eventually like encompasses your mind. Like it overcomes you, and you don't even realize that it's happened. And then all of a sudden you're looking at yourself the same way that society looks at you. Yeah. So
I think really that's like the powerful ways of the enemy, in the sense that it is a slow progression. I've used this analogy before, but I was not visible, so it'll work better this way. But like, we all start at like the perfect component of creation, like in God's image, and he intends for us to be over here. And instead, like day by day, as we're going the line, we're just adjusting a little bit to then our line is way over here, and God's like, no, like you're supposed to be over here, and the enemy's like, keep coming this way, and to the point where we get so off course where like this seems impossible to get back to that angle, back to the point that he would have us be. And I love, Chelsea and Kathryn, that you guys both have said on the onset that this is not a 30-day transformation, that this is not a get skinny quick experience. Like, you can do those things, and those things might be what's achieved, but where is your heart and where is your mind? And ultimately, that's where you are going to live. That's where you live all minutes of every day. And so that's the part ultimately that needs to be fixed first. It needs to be like, and I say fixed because it's not like you're necessarily broken. You're just in a place of negative mindset. And so it even sounds weird, like when somebody gives you a compliment, right? We as women often deflect it. Instead of saying, thank you so much. Like if someone's like, oh, you look really good in that dress. And you're like, oh, thanks. Or you'll just be like, yeah, I could have a little bit less here, or a little bit more there. We constantly are thinking about how we could be better. And yet, instead of just receiving the compliment and saying thank you, it's a deflection. And I think that that's like this comparison. That's part of like comparison, and it's a part of so many different things. But I wish that we would get better as a community of supporting one another through compliments, and us as women learning to say thank you and receiving it, and not just saying thank you to say thank you, but to receive it.
Yeah.
And going along with that, I think a lot of it is a shift in so something that I try to do, like in my own head, is how do I view other women? Like when I look at Chelsea, just as an example, because she's here, like I see this strong, hot, beautiful, like confident woman. And maybe when she looks at herself in the mirror, some days she doesn't see that. And so I think that if we gave the same grace to ourselves that we give other women, like if we just like stepped out of ourselves and looked at ourselves from like another vantage point, then it would really change our perspective. One thing I always think about is like, how do I want my future daughter to look at herself? Because I would view her as this like miracle creation, beautiful woman who God created, but we don't look at ourselves that way. So it's the same thing with like compliments. Like, why don't we empower ourselves from the inside out? Like, why don't we say like, wow, you do look strong.
Yeah.
Like, dang, girl, you know, like, because we deserve the same grace that we give other people, and we don't give it to ourselves.
Yeah, it's good. I think using those words too that you were saying, and taking away like pretty or skinny or some of the things that might be that cultural mindset, and using the words you're strong and empowering and motivating, and all of the words that really speak to the character and the heart of the woman versus the body of the woman would be a really good technique and strategy.
And changing the definition of beauty. Because like, to me, Chelsea is beautiful, both from like a aesthetic point, but more so like I think she's beautiful because of her heart, you know? And so if you change like, what does beautiful mean? If it means something that's like, my heart is like kind and compassionate and all these things, then it becomes more of a characteristic instead of like a label. You know? Yeah.
It's interesting, Chelsea, as you're going through pregnancy, I was, my first like out of college experience, I became a personal trainer as well. And I was doing personal training and nutrition consulting specifically around the business that I was looking to launch, which is pre and postnatal, like a maternity boutique. So I did all of my training and my fitness certifications in pregnancy, even though I was years away from having baby at that point. And so as your body is changing and you're walking through these like first experiences of that, and you're still probably tiny at this point, but like you're going to have all these different thought processes and patterns that go through. And I wasn't in the same heart set or mindset that I am now when I was pregnant, and even afterwards. And so that was a really, really hard journey for me from the physical standpoint of my body during pregnancy, and then of course my body after pregnancy, and having these huge expectations for myself to be back in my bikini bod before, you know, a certain date, or and really stressing myself to the point where I wasn't able to even enjoy nursing as long as I had really hoped that I could, because I didn't fuel my body correctly during those times. So I know you're going to have such a testimony to that as you walk through this season.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really glad that I'm in the mindset that I am now going through this, because I can definitely see and understand where that can be really hard and toxic for women. And I think it's really sad. Like, I'm a part of a couple different like faith-based mom groups on Facebook and stuff, and I'll see these posts, and these moms are posting like their their pre-pregnancy body, and then what they are right now at like 35 weeks pregnant, and they're like, I'm struggling so hard. I've never been over 120 pounds in my whole life, and I don't know what to do. And it just really breaks my heart that that's the case when your body we were literally created to create life, and like how freaking amazing is that? And I think we all need to look at it from that point and not pose these, again, like coming back to those diet culture references of focusing on the product rather than the process, right? On the podcast, we talk about focusing on the process rather than the product. And sometimes if you lose some weight or you feel better about your body, whatever, that's just icing on the cake, but that's not our why, and it should never be our why. If our process is creating life, who the heck cares what we look like, right? And I'm not going to say that I won't struggle. I'm sure that I will. But I think we as women need to get better about like speaking that into ourselves and into other women, and not be like, oh, like, how long did it take you to lose the baby weight or bounce back? We're going to be meeting whole new versions of ourselves when you become a mom, and that might not ever look like you did before. And honestly, thank God for that, right? Because we're being transformed from the inside out. So I think that's huge.
That gives me full body chills. It's so good. It's such a gift that you will be able to steward people in that way, because I surely needed it. And the people around me weren't speaking that kind of life at the time either. So again, like, landscape design includes who you surround yourself with. It includes your community. And so if you don't have friends that are speaking into your well-being rather than your physicality, then you're not in the right space, especially if you're dating someone who's only looking at you from a physicality perspective. That's, a red flag, if you will, from the relationship standpoint. But it's such a beautiful, amazing gift, and it definitely changes everything when you have a little person, a little human on the other side that is able to speak to you, because it doesn't have the same weight. For me, it didn't when my child was, an infant. I was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing, and he's amazing, and they're everything that I ever wanted, but I still had these effects. And now I've been walking through, like, my little girl who gets ready with me in the morning, pre-quarantine, because I only look like this like twice a week now. My hair actually blown dried. But I stopped wearing mascara, like, completely over the course of the last, like, probably 2 months. So I put it on probably 4 times since then when I'm doing video overlay things for stuff. But my child was sitting next to me as a 5-year-old, and she would say, ooh, can you put some on me? Of anything. It'd be blush, it'd be whatever. And I'm like, no, baby, like, your skin's so perfect. Like, you're so sweet just the way you are. All the things that our mothers told us when we first wanted to wear makeup, right? You don't need that. And she'd be like, well, then you don't need it either. And I'm like,
you're right.
You're right. I absolutely don't. And so I would be like, hey, to my son the other morning, I'm like, hey, baby, I'm going to run upstairs and go get ready while you finish that exercise. And he's like, but you already look ready. I'm like, bub, I'm in my pajamas. He's like, I know, you can get dressed, but you don't need to do anything else. And it's all about, like, our perception. And again, like, what the world is presenting as ready versus I'm ready. And so it's so different when they can speak life into you, even at such a young age. So it's been a really cool transformation for me as a mom, and a freeing experience as a woman. I mean, are you kidding me? I don't have to put on makeup. This is great. I can get ready in just as much time as my husband. My hair doesn't look as good as his because he just, like, does this little thing. But regardless, it doesn't matter. We're quarantined. So there's a lot of beauty in that experience, and I hope that people, like, learn to embrace that through this time.
That reminds me of this one time years ago. I have 3 little nephews, and so I just think it's comical that we're adding yet another boy to the family. But we were all at our family vacation, like at the beach house that we go to every summer. And my oldest nephew, Jake, I think he was like maybe 3 or 4 at the time. And I guess was like wearing makeup most of the week, or like had gotten ready to go to dinner.
Yeah.
And later on took my makeup off, so I wasn't wearing any mascara. And he looks at me and he's like, where'd your eyelashes go?
They're in the sink.
And I was like, oh man, that is bad. Like, do you think the business is like what I look like normally? Like I should probably like stay off of makeup for a little while of like his reality of me changed.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, it's funny. I always feel most free in my skin anyway when it's summertime and I'm not wearing makeup. And yet in the winter, you're like, I guess I need the bronzer. I'll break out this, you know. It's so not necessary. But I think that's another reason I live at the beach, so that I can get ample sunshine as much as I can.
Ready for it.
So good. Well, ladies, I am so grateful for you. I feel like you're transforming Wilmington, but even beyond that, because I know you guys are reaching people on a national, and I'm going to say it out loud, worldly level, that you guys continue to just walk this thing out and let God continue to transform the hearts of other women, and you just continue to steward the messages that have been, you know, placed on your heart and continuing to be the light. I love, Kathryn, you were talking about that earlier, and then you have like this lamp right here, and you just look so angelic. Like she is literally like preaching light right now, and it's just like all around you. But I just love it. I love that it's ingrained in your all's testimonies, and that you guys are standing in that, and it's a beautiful thing, especially being as young and new in life as you guys are.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I feel honored to know you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be rooting you on.
Appreciate
So before we jump off, let people know how they can find you individually or collectively, obviously your podcast.
Yeah, so our podcast is called Heart and Soul, SOLE, and the and sign is actually a plus sign. That gets tricky in the searching part. So Heart plus Soul, SOLE is our podcast. You can find us on Instagram too at Heart and Soul Podcast. My personal Instagram is, I'm all about the gram, so if you want to find me, that's like the best way to reach me. But it's KCOLL. It's my maiden name. I haven't changed it yet. KCall. And then my business Instagram is at Soul, SOLE_fitness. So you can find all the information about what we offer there.
Cool.
Yep. And I'm at Chelsea Allegra on Instagram. And then my website is chelseaallegra.com.
Awesome. Praying over both of your all's businesses during this season. It's my heart to see you guys thrive, especially in the wedding industry, Chelsea. They got to make them up. They got to make them up, right?
It's going to be a busy fall, I'll tell you that much.
That's exactly right. Well, when's the baby due? Wait.
August.
Oh,
August.
gosh,
so
yes.
I'll be returning from maternity leave and shooting like 6 weddings back to back. So.
Wow. Then definitely extra prayer in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, it was a pleasure. Yeah, it was a pleasure, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Tamra Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not, this came with trial, you guys. This came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review, send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.